Okay. Louis, hey, good morning. Hey, good morning, everybody. So I'm going to give it a couple of minutes again, just for everybody to, I check people are signing up and signing in and everything. So it is, while we're here, UV, hey, Adil, how's it going? So it's 6 o'clock in the morning in South Africa, second cup of coffee. As we're waiting just for people to kind of finish signing in, as per usual with these webinars, if you have any questions, use the Q&A tab. I will get to every single one of them. I will get to every single one. And this is, again, these are all recorded, and later today, I'm going to start loading all the webinars that we've had onto the Wild Eye Instagram TV, as well as the Wild Eye YouTube channel. So if there was anything that you wanted to work through slowly in any of the previous ones, then we can do that as well. Just a quick one for me. This is obviously, it's very early South Africa time. I'm normally up early. Oh, this is the most random thing I'm going to say during this particular webinar. I've figured out, if you follow my Instagram, I figured out where the chicken sound is coming from. I'll share it with you guys on Instagram later. But just a quick one for me. In the chat, just give me a quick idea what time it is where you are, please. What time is it where you are right now? It's 9 p.m. It's noon in Singapore. Midnight, Becky, nice, 11 p.m. Okay, still got everything. 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Netherlands. Oh, Netherlands in the same time zone. Okay, so let's get going. At the end of this, I'll just talk to you about the next webinars that's coming up later today and then tomorrow as well. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to dive into the basic panel in Lightroom. Now, just again, if you guys can do one more for me in the chat section, just give me a quick idea, beginner, intermediate, advanced on your Lightroom skills. Go. Okay, a little bit of everything there. All right, cool. Now, just following those along, beginning. Okay, now what I'm going to try and focus on in beginner, intermediate-ish. Good answer, Heather. So what I'm going to focus on is the basic panel in Lightroom. Once I share my screen with you, I'm going to quickly just go through the basics, right? And the layout of Lightroom. Some of you might know this. Most of you will probably know this. But it's just a nice way for us to kind of refamiliarize ourselves with some of the things. And then I'm only going to focus on the basic panel. Now, you all know what Excel is, right? You can go into Excel and create amazing spreadsheets, but very few people actually use the full power of Excel. Lightroom is the same. There's a lot of very cool stuff you can do. And in this week, I think I'm doing 4 webinars this week, right? I'm going to go deeper and deeper and deeper all the time. But because there are sliders there, it doesn't mean you have to use them when you process. That's just, if you could stop this webinar now, that's the most important thing. Because those sliders are there, doesn't mean you have to use them. So what we're going to do is when we get to the basic panel, I'm going to start from the top and discuss every slider individually so you understand what it does, right? And then we're going to work through a couple of images in a workflow that works for me. I mean, and this is from, years and years of shooting for myself, presenting courses, workshops, keynotes, and also working with people on Safari, just a kind of a workflow that seems to work pretty nicely for what we do. Right, so I'm going to quickly just jump to Lightroom here. I'm going to share my screen with you, and then I'll come back to you in a second. All right, just a quick thumbs up for me if you can see the screen, please, just so I can make sure we're all on the same page. Yes, you got it, Anne. Done. Thank you so much. Okay, so you guys can see the screen. This is good. Okay, so let me just hide me there. What you're looking at here now, at the top, this is the library module. Now tomorrow, right? Tomorrow I'm going to go into this library module here, and I'm going to go deep, right, into all of this stuff, catalog, folders, collections, how to manage, how to star rate, which is probably one of the most powerful features of Lightroom, is this library module. Right, so you could think, if you don't understand Lightroom, you can almost think of this as the kind of the Finder or the Microsoft Explorer. This is where you look at your images and rate them and star them and stuff like that. Hey, good morning. So the moment you then choose an image, let's choose this one, for example, right, with a white frame, and you hit develop, you go into the develop section, or for lack of a better term, the Photoshop section. Now, all of these panels on the side here does different things. Okay, today, this morning, we're going to focus just on this because this is important. Now, I'm going to come back to you quickly. Just before I do, keep this in mind, right? See these? Okay. Now, there are a couple of tips and tricks I'm going to quickly give you. Some people know these, some people don't. But even for those of you that have had Lightroom experience, there's some pretty cool stuff that you can do now with those. You can also mess with your friends a bit. I'll show you how. But the most important thing when we talk about the basic panel is when you shoot in the field, this, what we're going to do now, and all of Lightroom, is not a way to fix an image. That's just wrong, right? If someone says, oh yeah, but you use Photoshop to fix your images, no. We're shooting raw. We're collecting as much raw data in the field as we can in order to do what we did when we had film. You would shoot in the field, right? Actually, out of interest, how many of you ever did shoot film? Today, how many of you, because a lot of people now only come into digital, how many of you ever shot film, like for real? Because it was very different. You had to really think about it. Becky shot film. Penny as well. Okay, so you really had to think about it. It is a long time ago. But now we just like shoot, we can check, we can change. So in the old days, you would shoot, you would take that piece of film, right, the roll, to the corner shop, and the little guy would kind of get it and he would develop it. What he did there is what we're doing in the basic panel. You should be able to get your image, your raw file, very, very close to what you wanted within the basic panel. Yes, there's a special adjustment brush, which I'm dealing with on Thursday. There is layers and split toning and all these interesting things. You should be able to get very, very, very close in the basic panel. If not, you need to maybe question your raw file. And that means you might have to go back and look at your skills in the field and see, maybe we should fix something there. Okay, so before we go into the basic panel, just a couple of random stuff around those panels. Watch this. So we are now back into Lightroom. Yes, there's our panels. Now, in the past, you couldn't move these around. Now, yours might be in a different layout than mine. So what you can do is you can right-click next to any of these, yeah? And you can customize this by moving them around in whichever order you work. So I like to work basic. Effect is like a vignette, detail is noise and sharpening. This, if you show my black and white, is with a black and white one. But you can, however you wish, move these around. I'm not going to hit save now because that means I have to close Lightroom, right? But you can move them around in whichever order you like, save, close Lightroom, and then you can customize these in whichever order you want them. I'm going to cancel. Right. The next one is you can also, I'm going to turn solo mode off for now. What this is, and this is a big deal, right? A lot of people, and this sometimes makes processing just a little bit, what's the word? Maybe a little bit confusing for people, right? Because your Photoshop, your Lightroom might look like this, where everything is open, right? It's a pain, right? So if I'm doing something here, I've got to scroll down to get somewhere and then scroll back up. It's a lot of work. All you do is you turn solo mode on, which next to this basic panel or next to effects, anywhere just next to it in this dark gray area, you right click and you turn solo mode on. What that means is only one of these can be open at any given time. So if I open basic, watch, effects close. If I open detail, okay, it's golden. That is literally when I get someone in Lightroom for the first time, that's the first thing I do is I turn solo mode on. And just for those of you who are going to join me tomorrow for the cataloging one, if you go to library, the same thing counts here and on this side. Every single panel in Lightroom, you can turn solo mode on. It really, really is cool. All right, so that is just about the layout of the basic panel. Now we can get stuck into each of these sliders. Now remember this, guys. The Q&A is open. If you have any questions, I will pop them either as we go, or then or towards the end. I will look at every single one of those. So now remember this. The basic panel is where you process your images. This is full frame processing. It is not pixel level. So the stuff we did in Photoshop, if you joined me for that one a couple of days ago, was pixel level. I could just select an area and change this, that. Every single one of these sliders we're going to look at now affects the entire frame. So it's global adjustments. I am going to throw cropping into this. Yeah, I'm going to throw a bit of cropping into this. If you have a pen and paper next to you, we could dig into some of the shortcuts, but I'm going to run through them and you can watch this on the rerun again, should you need any of that. So here we go. I'm monitoring the chat section for now. Q&A I'll jump to in between. All right, here we go. Into Lightroom. Now, the normal workflow that I would look at is the following. I would look at an image like this, which is raw. Just reset, 100% raw, as shot straight out of camera. Okay. The first couple of things that I would do, and I'll just show you this very quickly, is I would do three things. Number one, I would crop. The reason is you're not going to get an artist who has a big canvas in front of him, starts painting, and then decides halfway, no, let's chop this off. Okay. Watch the histogram. I hope you guys understand this. If not, you need to get in touch with me. It's important. That's the histogram for the image as we see it now. If I open my crop mode, right, and I crop to that, for example, can you see how it changes the histogram? So depending on what you're going to show, the histogram changes. Yeah, makes sense? So you should be cropping first. The very first thing you should be doing is cropping, because you'll see when we get to these things, it's important that you know what your histogram is doing. Okay, so cropping for me is always first. In this instance, cropping, straighten the horizon, and remove dust spots. That's my go-to every single time to start with. So let's go back. The easiest way to open the crop is to hit R on the keyboard, the letter R. Think of it as recompose. So if I hit R, or you can just click on the crop there, but R opens this for me, okay? And then I can move this around. You'll see now it's in fixed ratio, right? It means it stays in that original ratio. If you want a free crop, you're going to click on this little padlock, open that, and now I can crop in any given kind of ratio. You can go free on this one. That's pretty cool. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to straighten the horizon. You can see this elephant's walking downhill, poor thing. Okay, the easiest way, and the guys, again, I'm flying through these, is when you're in crop mode, only in crop mode, yeah? You're going to hold Command on a Mac or PC. Watch what happens to my cursor. And I'm going to take here and I'm going to draw a straight line on the horizon. Okay, so I just draw a line on the horizon. When I release this, it straightens it. I'm going to reset crop. Watch again. While I'm in crop mode, I hold Command on a Mac or Control on a PC. I draw a line on the actual horizon, and when I release it, Lightroom straightens that to flat. Okay, easy so far. Okay, that's pretty easy so far. Now, just for argument's sake now, I might want to do this as a 16:9. You can choose your ratios over here next to original, click on the two triangles. I can come down to 16:9, and then it locks the padlock 69, and then I can just move my image around. All right, so just for argument's sake for now, let's say that. Okay, so there's my crop. Now, just a quick one here. When you do before and after, the shortcut key in Lightroom is Y. So if I hit Y, it does this. Before on this side, after on this side. Just keep in mind that the before and after view does not show cropping. It only shows adjustments done in the panels. If you want to see the before and after of cropping, you have to click on the little crop icon, and then you can see that there. All right, we're on the same page so far. Let's start working. So, like we said, this is the basic panel. It even says basic, right? So even though it's basic, this is where you should be starting. Now, I'm going to run quickly from the top to the bottom on every single one of these sliders so that you know what they do. And then I'll show you how to start using them in a basic workflow. All right, up at the top here, temperature. Now this is white balance. You can do this in camera. You know that you can set, for example, auto white balance, cloudy, shady, and I hope you all know what that does. Quickly give me an idea. Do you guys understand white balance in camera and how it affects the image? Just a yes or a no. Yes, Louis got it. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, cool. So Maggie, okay, Tessa, we can talk. All right, most of you understand. If you don't, let me know, we can talk offline. So what this would do is, this is exactly that same thing, right? It controls the temperature. So if you enter Kelvins, you can get your numbers here. You can then go make the image cooler, right? Or warmer. Now, depending on which white balance you are using in camera, if you're shooting shady, for example, the camera will add oranges to it, so it'll look more like that. If you're doing a tungsten, depending on what kind of light you're in, it will do that. Okay, but this here is exactly that. 90% of the time, you wouldn't have to touch this. If you're shooting auto white balance, you should be pretty much in the ballpark. And just remember one thing, right? This is important. With Lightroom, with Photoshop, with photography, if you ask 10 photographers for their opinion, you're going to get 27 opinions. There's more than one way to do things here. I'm trying to keep it as basic as possible. I will never change what you do. We will look at how you do things. We will mold that in order to make you better, right? But what I'm showing you is the basics over here. Right, let's go back in. Share screen, Lightroom, done. Okay, so what we have here is then the, let me just turn that chat on so I can see you guys. I got you. All right, so this is your white balance. Cooling it down, warming it up. Okay, you can see the dramatic effect that it has. All right, now don't be like some people that just does this. Oh, look, I've created fine art. No, Sarah, you've just made a blue image. Okay, so the same can go for that. Now, I'm not going to go too deep right now into the color picker tool. This you can use to define white, and then it builds your white balance around it. Tint is also involved here, depending on the type of light. Why is it always Sarah? I don't know. I must change that. Sorry, UV, I will change it to someone else, Corin or something. So tint would give the same thing. So tint gives it more of a green or a magenta. This is all part of the white balance and how the camera puts together color. I must be honest, I very seldomly use this one. Where it does sometimes happen, if you're shooting inside forests, I'm thinking gorillas, Borneo, Madagascar, things like this, there can often be quite a green tinge to the image, especially on the black subjects of the gorillas. So you could then, for example, just add it up a little magenta, which balances that out. But for the purposes of now, you probably won't have to use this. The top one here would be to taste. And what I want you to do, if you did not see my webinar on Nick Filters, go and check it out. What happens in there is in Pro Contrast, you had that thing that says remove color cast. That basically fixes any issues that you have here. So they all start working together. All right, that's white balance at the top. Coming down now, exposure. This is exactly what you would do if you over and underexpose inside of your camera. Overexpose means you make everything brighter, and underexpose means you make everything darker. Now, I'm assuming that you all know that how you can over and underexpose in camera. If you, for example, see this number over here, 0.0. If you overexpose by, for example, 2 1/3, you could do the same here. So plus 2 1/3. So that you can create in camera. You know this, yes? You know this. Okay. Which in raw file language means we can now do the same thing here. Thanks, Ida, that's cool. If you underexposed by 2/3, you would be somewhere in that range, right? So this you can do in camera. Important thing to note here for me is if you do over and underexpose in camera and you import your raw file into Lightroom, Lightroom will not give it to you here. Unfortunately, it would be great if it could automatically pull that through, but right now it gives you 0. You start with a raw file that's straight from camera. Okay, so exposure is what it says. All the tones up, all the tones down. One thing to note quickly, just look at the histogram for me at the top here. Can you see how it moves around? And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, and it's going to be very important. On any of these sliders, when you're ready to get it back to 0, just double click on it, and it takes the slider back to 0. Okay, contrast. What contrast does is historically, it gives the image a pop, right? It makes it pop more. So what it does, it makes darks darker and lights lighter. So if you increase contrast, everything in Lightroom, when you increase, you go to the right-hand side. Increase makes the darks darker and the lights lighter. So it looks more poppy, more like punchy, if you will. Double click. If I take it away, it seems to flatten the image out. Okay. This is an important one. So let me quickly bring it here. So contrast again, you've got darks, you've got lights. When you increase contrast, it makes the darks darker and the lights lighter. So it's pulling those two tonal values apart, which means there's a bigger tonal range. If it was like that and you minimize contrast and you reduce contrast, it pushes the lights get darker and the darks get lighter together. So the closer these two are together, the more flat and washed out the image looks, like this elephant we have on here. Would you use tint in night photography? Hold that thought. Adam, I will get back to it. Good question. Okay, let us go back to Lightroom for now. All right, we're in there. Okay, so contrast, yeah? Now, this is an important slide because I'm going to talk about that when we get to these three. Remember, contrast makes darks darker and lights lighter. Now, these ones over here are probably the most important four for me personally inside of Lightroom's basic panel. However, I'm going to skip them for a second because I'm going to start there when we workflow. Let's jump down to here now because we're talking about contrast. Texture. What texture does is texture and clarity are very similar. If I zoom into an area, see the horizon line here where you've got brown and this gray, that flat horizon, okay? That flat horizon, just quickly, where are we? We just open the chat function. I see there's notes there. Okay, no, we're all good. So when I look at the horizon, for example, when you increase texture, texture increases, listen nicely, texture increases the contrast around the edges of the image, but it favors the light area. It favors highlights. It looks like sharpening, but it's not. Okay, so this is probably not the best image to do it on, but let's watch this elephant as I increase the texture. Can you see what happens? Okay, it makes it look more sharp. Okay, it makes it look more sharp. It doesn't add sharpness. Sharpness I'm doing as a standalone webinar later this week. What texture does is it increases contrast only around the edges of the image, but it favors the highlights. Make sense? Okay, clarity does the same thing. Clarity enhances, just do that so we can see him better. Clarity enhances the contrast around the edges of the image, but it favors the darks. So watch, and it's more aggressive. Can you see that? Okay, it's more aggressive. Okay, let's watch texture again, all the way up. So you can see how that texture all the way up versus clarity all the way up, big difference. Okay, now quick one here. Texture going up. I think I said this the other day as well, is I've sat on the boat in Svalbard and we took about 25 images, a couple of our guests, and we tested. Texture just came out as a brand new slider in Lightroom. We couldn't find an image where it actually degraded the image, where it made it worse. It always made it better. However, still, don't go too much. Every question on every webinar is, how much should I process my images? If I can see what you've done, you fail. It's as simple as that. It needs to look natural. So if you have a picture of a leopard, we've got one now, which we're going to process in a bit, and you process it, and this leopard's fur looks so sharp that if you touch it, it's going to cut your hand. You've gone too far, right? It still needs to be natural. And I'll give you an idea on those bottom ones of how to do that. Happy with texture and contrast and clarity. Let's go back in here to Lightroom. Okay, so one more time from the top. Exposure does brightness all the way through. Contrast makes darks darker and lights lighter. So either it gives the image pop or it washes it out because those tonal ranges come closer together. Hold the thought on these. We're coming back to these. And then texture does clarity, or texture just contrast around the edges of the image, focusing on the highlighted areas. Clarity does the same thing, a little bit more aggressively so, focuses on the darks. Important note for yourself here. Clarity does make the image darker. Watch my histogram. When you up clarity, it slowly shifts the tones down. Okay, but we'll get there. Now, dehaze, I'm going to pull back for this one. Dehaze is also based on contrast. Now, when Adobe released this, the dehaze slider, it is pretty awesome, right? It's a pretty awesome slider. What it does, The same thing as texture and clarity. It does contrast, but it tries to do contrast in smooth areas, like up in the sky. Adobe literally said it works for things like mist, fog, water, smoke, and then obviously clouds. Now, it can be quite aggressive. It also makes the image darker, but dehaze will focus on smooth areas. So you should already be thinking to yourself, when I process, I should be using a combination of these as well as all of that. So dehaze slider going up, remember, is going to try and find contrast in smooth areas. And here we go, watch. Slowly up. I'm going to bang it out all the way just to see. Okay, see what happens. Yes, it will affect the elephant and the rough areas as well. It's focused on, okay, that's really shitty, so you're not going to do that. I'm just showing you what it looks like. But it will affect the entire image, right? So you have to find a balance for these, and I'll show you how to do that. If you take this down to the left, you're minimizing that, and it washes it out again. See how it almost adds a foggy look to it? Okay, so important to know, contrast, texture, clarity, dehaze, very closely linked. Very, very closely linked. Okay, the last two under presence here, and these ones we're going to use in a certain way when we start processing. Saturation. Now, watch saturation and vibrance. The difference is this. Saturation, if you could imagine, you know the DJ decks, where they've got all those little sliders that you can slide up at the same time, from down to up. If you think of saturation, it literally takes every single color from here all the way through, and it pushes all of them up at the same time, regardless of how much there was to start with. So it's quite aggressive. It takes all of it up. What vibrance does is vibrance will look at the image and it will say, right, what image or what colors are lacking in this image and what colors are not lacking. And when you then push it up, it takes those DJ sliders up, but it will always favor the colors which there's less of. And then it'll take it up. So it's a balanced way. So if you have to choose, always start with vibrance, and then if needed, do saturation as well. All right, you can see here. Do any of the ones under presence increase noise, says Charlotte? Potentially, yes. Dehaze dramatically, clarity can also do it, but it would depend on so many other factors. But as a broad strokes answer, yes. Okay, let's go into Lightroom again over here. All right, so that's the top to bottom. Now, this is the part where we need to pay attention. These 4 sliders are vital. Now, I'm going to tell you quickly how they work in relation to the histogram. The histogram we know, okay, question for you guys. Can you please give me a quick idea here of your understanding, okay, of the histogram? If 10 is, I know 110% what's going on here, and 1 is, what is that? 1 to 10, what is your understanding of histogram, please? This is important. 1 to 10, how much do we understand? Okay, this is important, guys. This is really important for you to understand the histogram. Okay, we're sitting at an average of about a 5 or a 6 so far. All right, 2, 6, 10. Louis, I like it. All right. So, crash course in Instagram coming up in Instagram. I can do that as well, actually, but histogram for now. Okay, the understanding of the histogram. This is the short version, and I'm going to fly through this, right? If you look at this thing, let me just make it a bit bigger here so you can see more. If I look at this side is pure black. That side represents pure white. If the histogram is touching on this side, it means somewhere in this image there is pure black, and this is going to become important when we start processing. On this side, if the histogram touches this side, it means there's pure white in the image. You can see now there's no white or highlight areas in this image. Okay, now watch here, black, white, shadows, highlight. Watch when I touch this slider here, how a piece of this histogram lights up. Watch the histogram. Can you see how it shows me which area of the image it's going to manipulate, of the histogram it's going to manipulate, right? Now, this histogram, in perfect world situation, and you still get websites and books that says this, your histogram should go from pure black to pure white. It should go up and down. Now, the height of the histogram at any point in time shows you how much of that tonal value there is. If it's very much on the left and it's very high up, it means there's a lot of black and the histogram comes down. If it's the other way around and there's a lot on the right, it means that there's a lot of white in the image or bright areas. If it's just touching in the corners and it goes up, it means there's a lot of midtones. Now, this is important because photography theory says to us that somewhere, and this is more from a black and white, like Ansel Adams days, right? Somewhere in an image, you want pure black. Somewhere in an image, you want pure white. Now, it doesn't have to be a lot. It could be a pixel. And that's where my processing and your workflow, in my opinion, should start. Watch this. So this is the 0 image. You can see that this is touching because there's the blue little triangles lit up. It means the blue tones are touching. So there is pure black, but there's no pure white in this image. Now, how I start every single image always is with these 2 sliders. I do black and I do white. This is called setting the black and white point. I've got YouTube videos on this. Let me know if you want the links, right? So I would fix these 2 first. And then we work up from there, ending on exposure. I then jump down to texture and work down. That's my workflow. I go from blacks up, only touching that if necessary. From blacks, I work up. I drop to texture and I come down. So this is how blacks and white work. You could very well just take the slider, watching the histogram, and move it around. See now how I'm moving that histogram forward and back. All right. But at what point is there real black? This is the trick. I'm going to hold Option. I think it's Alt on a PC, Option on my Mac, right? And I hold the slider. It turns the entire frame white. Now watch, can you guys see? Watch here. I want you to watch down in this corner when I do that. Can you guys see there's a little bit of red and yellow in the bottom left? If I did this, there's no black now. Okay, so my suggestion on every single image that you process is you do it in this way. You take the slider, you hold Option, you whack it down to the left. Everything that's shining through now is pure black. If I leave this, so this is deep dark black, yeah, and there's deep black in the shadows. I then work deductively and I bring this back slowly, slowly, slowly until I'm left with literally a speck of black. Watch, so in the bottom left corner there, see that little bit of red done. Okay, so down here, there's pure black. I've defined the black point. It's touching. I want to do the same now for white. White has a bit of a note at the end, but we'll get there. So the same thing, I hold this, I hold Option. This one I whack to the right-hand side, boom. Everything now shining through, right? That is not black, is pure white. Can you see how washed out that is? Now I hold my Option slider, I hold Option and the slider, and I bring it back slowly until I'm left. See where that blue is? See the blue? Where there's just a speck. And then I release. Now, I've defined pure white and pure black. Can you see what's happened? But I've lost detail in the sky. Think about this. Zebra is the perfect example. Is a zebra black and white, according to Lightroom? Or is a zebra black and a dirty white brown? Okay, so we're defining things as if it is pure white. It might not have been in real life. So when it comes to white, black is important. Do it like I showed you. When it comes to white, though, we need to look at the image and say, it wasn't that white. Let me back it up. So what you've done now is you then say, okay, cool. I've defined white. Remember, we did this. Yes, we did that. Let me take my before and after off. And now I say, okay, that wasn't that bright. Let me just manually back it up until it looks a bit more natural there. That to me kind of works. Okay, so I'm just checking the chat here, my message popping up. Oh, no, I haven't. So that's how you would start there. All right, are we on the same page? Just give me a yes so far, or do you want me to do those black and white sliders again? Do I do those 2 again? We're going to do more images, or are we kind of happy with that? All okay, yes, all okay. Nope, great. Thanks, Amy. All good, happy. Okay, cool. So, I don't like the clouds in the photo. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. All right. So, you've defined those 2. Now, these 2 is a must for every single image that you do. Okay. And then you start moving up. Now, the shadows. This is the areas that are not pure black, but they're dark. You can now look, and here, I look at it visually and say, okay, cool, what do I want? I click shadows, I can either make the shadows darker or lighter. In this instance, I probably want to make them a bit darker. Yeah, it just anchors the image nicely at the bottom. That's up to you. That's your taste. Okay, that's up to taste. Now we go to highlights. What do you think? The sky would be the highlights. Do I take that up or down? It's a pretty obvious question, pretty obvious answer in this instance. Yeah, we want to take the highlights down a bit because then it tones that sky in. Watch what happens. Yeah. Okay. So we get there. And I'm just doing this visually. Now, let me quickly get you here. There are some people out there that like to process according to numbers. So they would look at those numbers on the side of each slider and they would literally think, okay, it was too much. I can't go over 50 or I can't go over 100. Stop worrying about it. When someone looks at the final image, they're not going to think, holy shit, Corin, that's a great image, but you shouldn't have gone 104 on your sharpening. Nobody cares. Visually is what matters. Okay, so I'm going to take you back in here. So happy with those ones. I would define black. I would define white. I would then use shadows and highlights to tone the image as I want it. I move up, like I said, contrast. For me, like I said earlier, contrast pulls darker, lights lighter. I would take this up, maybe just to an 8 to a 10, almost by default, right? Then at this stage, the clouds, yes, we're getting to the clouds. They're going to be amazing when we're done. Okay, if you've done blacks, white points, shadows, highlights, and contrast, this is important. If you've done all of those and your image still looks out of whack, use exposure then to fix that problem. If it's still too bright, tweak it. If it's still too dark, tweak it at that stage. If you start by moving that exposure slider up and down, you haven't even come down and you haven't set your black and white points. You have to set your black and white points first and then look at exposure. Does that make sense? So many people just dive right in, right? It's a 19-year-old douche move where the guy's after the goal and he just goes straight in. Dude, calm down just a little bit. Calm down just a little bit. Start slowly. Do the black point, do the white point, romance the girl a bit, you know what I mean? And then get to exposure. Does that work? Right? So let me go and take you back here. I didn't go straight after this particular one because I wasn't sure where to start. Okay, so I've done this all the way up, exposure. I can now tweak this as I feel necessary, if I feel necessary. Let me back it up just a touch there. Okay, let's look at it before and after. So I've only gone from there to there, before and after. Okay, more punchy, more clouds, and now we get to presence. Presence is where the real magic happens. Presence is where the real magic happens. So now I'm going to just quickly, with these ones, right? I'm going to approach this in a different way. I'm not going to do this visually, but let me explain why, and this is important. With texture, clarity, dehaze, vibrance, and saturation, the mistake a lot of people make is they start and they slowly going up, and then they stop because now it looks okay. But listen, John, if you took it 5 further, it could have looked even better. So one of the best tips that I've ever gotten, and this is from a New York street photographer, is what I'm going to show you now. On the top ones, when you work from the black point up, do it like I've showed you, and we'll do another image after this. But when you get to presence, start, whack it up all the way so it looks crap, and then bring it back. Because if something looks shitty in Lightroom and you've maxed it out, and you bring that slider down, and then there it is, you know you're not leaving image quality or vibrance or saturation on the table. You know you've got all of it. Let me show you what I mean. Let me just check Q&A here quickly. Do you ever use auto? Short answer, no, but I will answer that for you as well, Peter. We'll get there. Okay, so how I would suggest, and this has worked beautifully for me with these, is instead of, let me just explain it again. Instead of starting here and going slowly, looking at the image, slowly stop, right? You stopped at 14. Remember, we don't care about numbers. What if 24 was better? you won't know this, okay? Because you stop and you're scared to overprocess. So here's what you do. On every one of these, what I do, whack it up to its max, bam. Okay, it looks a bit overprocessed, yeah? But now I pull back and I watch the image until it doesn't look shitty anymore. Stop, like maybe there for example. Okay, now watch. Initially, I stopped at 14, right? 14. Now I'm 26. Same thing, clarity. Whack it up all the way. Boom. Okay, if that's your look, that's fine. You can do that. And then I would take it down until it doesn't look unnatural anymore. Don't look at the number, just look at the image until you get to a place where you think that's pretty cool. I like, that's pretty sweet. Let's go before and after. Okay, we're getting there, right? Haze. Now this one, if I whack it up all the way, is going to look quite horrible. Watch. Holy hell. Okay, please don't ever do that. Now, well, if you do that and you post it, please don't tag me in it. Okay, from here, we start backing it up until it looks better. Stop there. To me, right? That's what I like. Now, you can come down. Some instances you might want to come down, but for me, I kind of like this space here somewhere. All right. Okay. Louis, I see your question. Seeing that the haze increases noise dramatically, would you rather ignore for images taking at high ISO? No, I would still do it, but then I would locally noise reduce. In the next one, the noise reduction one, I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so that's there. Now, same with vibrance. Let's whack vibrance up all the way. Bang. Obviously looks unnatural. Okay. Bring it back. And I want until I think that's pretty sweet. Okay, somewhere there. All right, and done. Saturation, same. Whack it up. Holy hell, not great. And back it up until I get to a happy space. I find myself sometimes actually under saturating because I've done everything else. Okay, so now let's look at these together. I see the notes. I'll get there now. So before and after gives me that. Okay, there's before and after. Okay, this is more what it looked like on this morning than here. Now, just for you guys, as far as a shortcut thing goes, Y on the keyboard does that. It splits one image to two. If you want to see the image flip on top what you've done, you could use the backslash. So that's before and after if you want to see the full frame version of it. The backslash key, yeah? Okay. And that's a basic process. Now, my idea is always to get it as natural as possible. I want to get it as natural as possible. And by doing that, starting from blacks, working up, dropping to presents, coming down, whack it out, bring it back, it works easily. So I see another question pop up here. Okay, I see questions as well. See me. Okay, gotcha. I'm going to get to those questions in a second. Let's do one more image here. I'm going to go to this. And let us go and do, what do we got here? Okay, let's use this leopard, right? D for develop, 0 file. There is nothing. So I'm going to go top to bottom on this one, and then I'll go to questions from there. Okay, so again, I start with black, crop. Sorry, crop first, Gerry, focus. I wouldn't change the crop too much, right? I like that he's a little bit off center. I might pull this in, maybe just a touch, giving him more space to look into. So I like the crop. I start with black. Let me just open my notes just in case I miss anything there. Okay, black, hold option. I drag it all the way down. I then come up until I'm left with just one speck or two of black. So you see that little piece in green in the middle? Pure black. So in this dot, there's pure black. Same with white. Click, hold option, whack it up. I come down until, ooh, that was quick, until I'm left with just a speck. There's a couple of specks there of pure white. So in the whisker, there's pure white, and in this grass. Now, at this point, can you guys see that this is a little overcooked from a warmth point of view? It is a little bit warm for my liking. Okay, watch it. If I now, and I'll look at this now, and this is where Nick Filters' reduced color cast comes in nicely. Louis will answer that for you now. So if I just cool this down a touch, see how that changes? Just a little bit. Makes it seem a little bit more natural. Okay, but I'm going to leave it for now. We'll fix that. Louis says, does shift and holding black and white sliders not do the same? If you can do this manually by holding shift and double clicking on it. Shift and double clicking on white, then it autos it as well. Okay, but again, you would have to reassess it, right? You would have to reassess it. So much of a muchness. Like I said, ask 10 people, you're going to get 27 different ways of doing it. So we're going to stay there. I now move up. I go to shadows. It is a bit cold, hey? That's why I'm drinking coffee. Have some coffee. And then shadows, on this one, I might lift up a bit. See, it's subtle on the cat. Highlights, I might want to bring up a little bit as well. So these two are visually. Remember, set this. These happen visually. Contrast for me, always up to about an 8 or so personally. I wouldn't touch exposure because I like it. I'm not going to make it too much brighter or too much darker. I kind of like the darkish, more like almost mysterious mood to this. Down here, we did what we said earlier. Whack texture up all the way. Okay, a little bit rough, and then back it up, looking at the image until you enjoy what you see. That's pretty much there. Same with clarity, all the way up. Whoa, damn. Bring it back to there. Dehaze, this is going to be shocking. Boom. Okay. Because remember, dehaze does smooth areas, and there's not many smooth areas in here. So it's not going to make a too dramatic difference to this image. I might even drop it down a bit. There we go. Vibrance, all the way up. Hello. Okay, we don't do that. Back it up until you get happy space. There's somewhere. Saturation up. Oh my God. And bring it back slowly until you like it somewhere there. All right, let's look before and after. Okay, so that to me, this on the right-hand side looks normal. That was the flat raw file. This is what it looked like. So now at this point in time, I can go and tweak my temperature if I still feel the need to. Personally, I would leave it and I would take it to Nick Filters. Go and watch that webinar. I'm loading it to IGTV on Wild Eye today and use color cast correction. It does a way better job. All right, I'm going to fly through one more for you guys quickly. And I'm actually just do this one here. It's a panning image of zebras coming down the banks of the Mara River. So in a pretty fast edit happens now. Crop first. So I hit R. I want to bring this in a bit because there's a lot of negative space behind him. That makes me more happy, right? Because now it feels like it's more balanced. Let's do black point. There. Okay. I do have a bit of a problem with coffee. I love coffee. There. So I've said black point. I'm going to set white point. And there. So there's black and white. Now remember, look at it, a little bit overcooked because Lightroom doesn't know what it's doing. And then bring it back a touch. There we go. I look at shadows. Do I want to make the shadows brighter or darker? In this instance, maybe darker. I quite like the darkness of it. Highlights, brighter or darker? Maybe up because it gives a pop at the top there. Just so far, there's your before and after. Okay, I go to contrast. I give it a bit of an 8, always more or less. Okay, exposure, up or down. I would leave it pretty much as it is. I'm liking it. Now, these things here, texture all the way up, boom. And then I come back. On these kind of images, kind of a zoom image, right? I bring it back to there. Same with clarity, boom. Bring it back to somewhere there. I'm liking that. Dehaze, all the way up. See, again, someone will do that and call it fine art. Don't tag me. Bring it back until it's more of an acceptable kind of thing over there. I'm liking that. I'm seeing the questions, guys. After this, we're going to finish that. Vibrance all the way up. Back it up. Saturation all the way up. Back it up. Do you guys understand this? The backing up, the max it out and bring it back. So there is my before and after. Before and after. If you want to see them next to each other. Again, it was more this color because it was like a late afternoon rather than that. Okay, so that in a nutshell is the basic panel. It's a great way to use the features of Lightroom to get that done. Okay, shadow is great. Okay, question time. I'm gonna quickly go through the questions here. Would you use tint in night photography? So when you do night photography, yes, you sometimes do get a bit of a magenta or a green coming in. What I would do is when I do night photography, I would shoot on auto white balance. If the Milky Way is in there, for example, I would then normally cool it down a bit on the cool it down. And then I would take a brush and add warmth back onto the Milky Way. This is for Adam. Only if needed will I change the tint after the fact. Charlotte, do any of these under presence increase noise? Yes, like we said, the dehaze slider and the clarity slider can and does, because it adds darks back into the image. Do I ever use auto, Peter? No, not really. I have in times when I've got a shitload of images to process. Like now, I have used auto for a quick one just to see if I'm looking at an image and I don't understand what I want to do with it and I'm a bit lost. I would hit auto and it might give me an idea, but then I would reset it and do it myself. So not a fan of auto. However, I know some people get good results. They use auto and then they tweak. There's no right and wrong. Okay, going down, see me key. Yes, I see that. Okay, I'm seeing when you crop, how do you keep the big size of the pic, please? Asks Ida. When you crop, how do you keep the big size of the pic? I'm not understanding that question, Ida. Sometimes I crop and my pic is then smaller. Okay, so let me just see if I understand you correctly. If I was to do this, if I had to crop this one, right? If I had to crop, if you crop to this, then it is going to be smaller because then you've basically destroyed all the information in the image. If you look at this, there's now only 943 pixels by 629. So you can't expect to crop this and then have it big. So maybe that's what you mean. But cropping, I might do just a standard cropping one as well. Okay, where's my Q&A? Come back. So Ida, if that doesn't make sense, send me a direct message. Adam, when you're doing a monochrome image, do you pop contrast much more? Yes. So when I do monochrome, I would go pretty heavy on clarity and structure, as well as contrast, because you want to pull that black and white apart even more. Go and watch the monochrome one if you haven't. Can you use the black and white points for portrait photography as well? Asks Adil. Yes. Lightroom doesn't care what you're photographing. It could be an apple on a table. It could be someone on the beach. It could be a portrait or a wildlife. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Okay. So it's the same thing, to keep the proportion of. Yes. Okay, Ida, I think we are on the same page. To keep the proportion, you unlock that padlock, and that is about it. Okay. So I think that's it. Any other questions? In about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What I'm going to quickly do is I'm going to quickly go here. Lightroom. I'm going to, for those of you that do not have my email address and contact details, you can quickly do a screen grab or something of that. Send me a mail, hit me up on social, WhatsApp. It's a business WhatsApp, but I'm on there as well. Top 2 is preferable if you have any questions. And then we can go from there. So what's going to happen is I'm running 4 webinars this week, one every day. I think the next one is on, what is tomorrow? Cataloging, probably using the cataloging feature, which is phenomenal in Lightroom. There's one on sharpening and noise reduction, which is a very misunderstood thing in the world of photography. And then on Thursday evening, I think, is the special adjustment brush. Which is just, it's a detail thing, right? That's it for now. I am loading all of the other webinars. I am loading onto the Wild Eye Instagram later today, so you can go and rewatch them. If you have any questions, get hold of me or watch the webinars. And as of today, we are also starting to offer one-on-one sessions, myself and all the Wild Eye guys. We're putting this out slowly, where if you want to work on your photography, you can book us for an hour and we focus on your images, your processing, and so on. But watch Instagram. All of the stuff will go on there later today. Guys, I'm going to probably have more coffee here. The sign-ups are not on the blog. Sorry, for the next webinars. No. What you want, Amy, is go and check the Wild Eye Instagram. We'll share all of it there again today. It's swipe upable links. We are working on an RSS feed, where I can then, sorry, Rocky just woke up, where I can then, where you can find all of them in one place. So that's it. If not, get hold of me and I can send you those links. Guys, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to grab more coffee. It's nice and early. Wherever in the world you are, good morning, good evening, and good night. I will see you in the next webinar. My name is Gerry. I'm from Wild Eye. Have a good one. Bye-bye.